I think sci-fi, unlike any other genre, has the capacity to open people's minds like that, to change your perspective on real world science as well as real world problems.
You're listening to Lemons Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality. All right, welcome to this episode of Lemons Listening Library. I am Randie Lemons, fantasy author, bleh, or RL Rose to those of you in the romance community. Today, I am joined by Kathy. Kathy, will you please tell our listeners about yourself?
Hey y'all, good morning. I'm Kathy Ireland. I own Phoenix Audio Productions, which helps authors get their books into audiobooks. I'm also an audiobook manager for J.R. Thorne, and I pretty much consume my books by audio, clearly. So
Our audiobook connoisseur.
at your service.
Yeah. All right, guys, before we introduce our guest that we are super excited to talk to today, I do want to remind our listeners to head over to our YouTube channel, comment on each episode that you listen to, and review us on your chosen podcast platform. We are on all of them. It is one of the most helpful ways you can support our show with the least amount of effort. It's super easy, super quick. We also have advertising spots available where we create commercials and broadcast them across all of our platforms, as well as give you the commercials to use on your platforms or however you see fit. If you'd like more information on this, please email us at lemonslisteninglibrary@gmail.com and we'll get you hooked up for that information. Lastly, go follow us on all of our social media platforms. Again, you can find us on all of them by searching Lemons Listening Library. All right, drum roll. The moment we've been waiting for, we would like to introduce CB. CB, will you please tell our listeners about yourself?
Yeah, hi. My name is CB Strul. I'm an indie sci-fi author, and I also own my own publishing company. It's called Odom's Library. That title is based on some things that happen in my sci-fi books. I'm based out of Southern California. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Now, what did you say? Did you say you didn't say Odin, did you? How did you say the name of your
Odom,
production? Odom.
I
Odom.
was thinking Odin as well. I'm like,
No, that's getting to some old Le Guin stuff there, if not Thor.
I mean, I'd be down for it. Either
same.
way. Uh, So you said that you were in film and you were a screenwriter before, is that correct?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I actually began my journey as a writer back when I was acting. So I started out as an actor. I went to school in New York at the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts, and I had been writing alongside all my acting preparation. And I came to the realization while I was in school there that I was more intrigued by the story than necessarily by the emotional working on the character that way. And when I came out to California, I realized, or I decided that I was less interested in auditioning, and I was less interested in that side of the process. And my screenplays just started to like take off. My practice in that got a lot better, and eventually, um, as we'll talk about in a minute, I was on the cusp of actually getting some like a feature film made, and then COVID hit. Yeah.
So you wanted to be the guy who handed out the manuscripts. You read this to
Yes.
me.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I want to see people perform it back to me, and I want to have that experience of having my things come to life.
That's amazing.
That's so
Thank
What a
you.
cool.
transition that is. Like, that's kind of like a mental, little bit of a mind fuck to transcend, to like trans transcend from the one side flip flopping over to the other side.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a lot, but at the same time, there's a very natural aspect to it because when you're working on characters, right, you're developing the character like as a writer, you want to get in their head as much as possible. When you're an actor, you're looking for all those different perspectives for that character. Why are they doing this here? Why are they doing that there? So hopefully, my characters are a little bit stronger because of it.
Yeah, as like social media aspects, as authors and trying to come up with new content to put out there on social media, I was like, I wonder if I could do like clips of my own characters, like act like them and like do their lines and stuff like that. And I'm like, I know them well enough. I should be able to do that, right? But no, oh my God, acting skills is a whole other ball game.
Well, so Kathy, I was
It's
actually that's
amazing.
something that's very interesting is that you're like the audiobook aficionado. So that was a big problem that I was running into when I was working on my first book, The Ancient Ones, was how to do the audiobook. If I was going to do an audiobook, everybody's asking for an audiobook, and I'm like, well, you know what? I have this background. I have this acting background. I should try to record it myself. I constantly read with my fiance Madison. We read all sorts of books together. I read out loud to her while we're doing other tasks and things. And she always says like, just keep on doing that, like record your own books. So I tried recording The Ancient Ones, and I'm sitting there and I'm realizing that like I had no idea what I was doing, and I recorded the whole book. And I feel like I had to scrap that whole recording. It took me like 2 months to get the whole thing recorded that way, and like running out of like my voice in the process and everything. So it's like, I don't know. How do you feel when you're working with or reading or listening to your audiobooks? Do you feel like they really are performing for you? Is it really like,
Oh,
yeah?
100%. And and the reason I can say that is because I'm very uh I am like I have my narrators that are my favorite narrators. Like I'll listen to pretty much anybody, but like I have my favorites and you can tell that between different genres that they record, like their performance is completely different. And
Mm.
it is like right to you. It's amazing. I cannot recommend highly enough going with a professional narrator because they will do your book justice. 100%. Take it to a new level.
Understood. Yeah, I trust that for sure. And at this point, going through the process, I'm like, maybe I could try it one more time with a different book, but I can't do it with the ancient ones because I just don't have the voice for that one.
Well, and the thing is like their bodies. I mean, being a narrator, I mean, it's not just, oh, I'm going to hop into a booth and, record this, but like they have to, I mean, they have diets that they have to, maintain because all of that affects their voice. You know, they know how to take care of it. They know when to rest it. They know their body so well that like it's a whole. I mean, you're paying for an actor, that is going to give your characters a whole fresh breath of new life.
Very cool. Yeah, they know when to drink the Gollum juice.
And when to not drink the milk.
Yes.
No, audiobooks have changed so much. Like this is something me and Kathy have talked about before where like the beginning of audiobooks started as like you're literally just reading a story to me. And now it has shifted into it is a whole audio play like production, even the dramatized audiobooks where they have like rain sounds involved in it, music. It's so much that goes into it. Every character, even the little side ones have their own separate voice actors. It's becoming so much more than what it started off as.
Kind of like
100%.
an old school radio play.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Cool. That's fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, keep practicing. Maybe that can be kind of your in between, right?
Yes, totally. How do I connect more directly with my audience?
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's just like what I was saying. I was trying to do it, but you have an actual acting background. It would be easier for you versus me, where I'm just like yelling at myself.
The other thing from a marketing standpoint of using um, narrators, like professional narrators, is they have a fan base that come with them. So, from a marketing standpoint, you're not only just hiring this narrator to professionally, um, you know, uh, record your book. I mean, and they're like, they have like all of this stuff, right? So it's not, they're going to get all the weird noises out. They're going to make sure that it is a professional quality, but also, um, uh, gosh, where was I going with that? I don't even know.
But they have the
Oh,
fan base. They're
their
gonna
fan base.
they
Yep.
Yeah, their fan base.
yeah.
So they're going to bring that, they're going to bring their fan base with them. And, I mean, most of them will um, uh, post, like stuff on their social media. Hey, this is the book I'm working on, or this just released or whatever. And that is powerful, powerful. And then even when you like, post in like the different reader groups on Facebook and stuff for audiobooks, I mean, all of their fans are in those reader groups. So, you get, it's just, to me, a very smart marketing
Yeah, that
decision
makes
as
a
well.
lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, something I'm gonna have to research some more because I hadn't thought about it to that depth before.
Yeah, it's huge. So far as to like the audiobook reveal of the narrator that's going to read your book is the new hype. It's just like another book cover reveal. And especially after, your book's been published for a little while, it breathes life back into your book like another release almost.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, take your time with it and then when you're ready, like reach out to Kathy. She'll get you hooked up on that stuff and information and getting you, the right people. She's amazing with that. Yeah. So you mentioned that your fiance, you read to your fiance.
Hmm.
I just want to make sure that everyone who's listening knows you're taken because all these book girlies are going to be like, read to me. I
It's
want someone to
relationship
read.
goals right there.
I'm sure she'd be willing to share that aspect of things sometimes.
Right. He can read to you. That's it. That's awesome. What an awesome partner to like know for one. She's like, I enjoy listening to you. Of course, everyone else is going to enjoy listening to you, and then encourage you to like to the point that you read your whole book, and then like, now what do I do with it?
Yeah, no, she's great. She definitely keeps me going. When COVID hit, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take some screenplays and I'm gonna start writing books, and then I'm gonna really just like be trying to focus primarily on novels. She was like, yeah, and the reason I had held back for so long from prose was just the amount of time that it takes. Like I didn't have that amount of time in the day, and all of a sudden I had more time than I knew what to do with, and I could finally flesh everything out more thoroughly. And she was on board with that, so she knew that I would have these hours in a day where like she'd come out, she'd give me like coffee or something, and like she was super sweet. And then like I would get up when I couldn't stare at the my laptop or my pages anymore, and just like, yeah, she's great.
That's awesome. Way to go, fiance. I know you said
Woo.
her name, but damn, I'm so bad
Madison.
at names. Madison.
Madison. So, CB, what drew you to what drove the first book? Like what brought you to that storyline? Like what is it that okay, this is it. This is what I'm writing, this first one.
Okay, so the Ancient Ones, I was working on the screenplay just after Connectivity, which is the second book. I'd been working on the screenplay for the Ancient Ones just before COVID, and it was like my escape because at the time I was helping to open a bar and everything like that. That place is doing great, and I love those people, and I'm not there anymore. And I I was just trying to get my frustrations out, put a big action piece together that I had never seen before, the Ancient Ones. It's like Miyazaki-esque in its scale. It's kind of like Princess Mononoke almost. That's probably the closest I can compare it to as far
Dang,
as
that's
like
a
as
lot
far
of
as
action then.
as far as what the action feels like, and it's like an ancient culture meets alien life. So that's the whole premise basically. So how when it was a screenplay, I was pushing it as this well, Apocalypto meets Stargate, and
Stargate. I miss that show so much.
I yeah, Stargate's awesome, and the show's even better than the movie, which is crazy, just because of the longevity of it. But oh man, okay, so
We could
We
go on
nerd
a
out on
whole
here all the
conversation
time.
there.
You're fine.
RDA, I mean, like, you can't get any better than Richard Dean Anderson. I'm so sorry.
yes, so the Ancient Ones. Then I was doing it. I was getting stuck. I was working on it. I finished the screenplay right after COVID hit because I had the extra time just to finish it off. I capped it off. I got to the end, and I'm just like, okay, the studios are shut down. Now what am I supposed to do? And then I just like was like, yeah, that's when I said it to her. I'm like, I want to turn this into a book. I want to figure out how to do that. She like we went out. Or we didn't go out. We already had one, a mantra journal that I didn't know what to do with because I used to just buy journals, buy journals, buy journals. I've shown it off before, but I'm going to show these off again. Ah,
Love his energy.
thank you. All right. So this is the one. This is the first mantra journal that I have. Okay.
My gosh,
Yeah, and this one has the.
gorgeous.
Thank you. And this one has all of these pages are full. And now at this point, and this is how I did it was I wrote the screenplays, like typed them on Final Draft back when I was working on screenplays, and then I would work in the book, and I would work up to a point with the ancient ones specifically, and I finished the whole book in here, and then I finished connectivity in here, and then I put like a portion of I think my fourth book in that one, maybe fifth book in that one, and then I finished this one too. So
Wow.
and now I'm like pretty far into this one, which I've been working on, and I love the color of that. But
Do you know how like seek like if you ever this makes it super big, you are big famous, how expensive those are going to be and sought after they're going to be?
they're part of my personal library.
You will need to insure those separately.
Yeah.
Hmm, 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 hmm.
So isn't that a little bit um uh, like backwards? Don't most books get written bookish and then go to like a
Was it
screenplay?
Star Wars was done that way. Star Wars started off as a screenplay and became a book.
I don't know.
I mean, I would say yeah. Like, I mean, I'm definitely going backwards, but at the same time, I feel like what the screenplays provide me is early access to the story without having to completely draw it out. So in that way, I mean, a lot of people have their note cards and just like try to flesh it out that way from like their notes to the main thing. So,
Your way of
No, I
outlining.
love it. I think that it probably
yeah.
brings like so much more uh, excuse the cliche, like more cinematic
Hmm.
excitement to the book,
I
which
hope so.
I think that's so cool because
Thank
fantasy
you.
books to me can be like a little too much.
Unless they're Brandon Sanderson these days.
Yeah, we got to get Kathy on a Brandon Sanderson book.
Yeah.
Yep, nope. I love that. But I'm kind of with Kathy. Like, I guess that you could look at it as like you said, an outline. But I can't imagine what is the difference, the biggest difference between screenplays and like turning it into a manuscript.
Being inside the character's head as the audience reading a novel, you get inside the character's head. You can't really do that the same way in a screenplay, and if you do, you only want to do it a little bit. You don't want to put a lot of voiceover work in there. You want to just be with them in the action. So now you take the action, you peel back an extra layer, and you get back into their head and you experience that. I feel like that's the biggest.
I bet, and it makes sense of as to why so many people feel that no movies can touch the books because it just doesn't go deep enough. It doesn't show all the detail. And like you said, you can't without having a ton of overlay of like internal dialogue.
Yeah. And the short list is very short of books that are not as good as the film. I think Children of Men is a better film than the book just because it's somebody else's like complete vision. Um, it's a very short list though. You're hard pressed to find very many of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why it would be so amazing to have narrators bring your book now to life. Oh gosh, we have to.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely since we're talking about it now, that's going through my head and I'm gonna be trying to.
He's not actually here right now. He's already thinking about, the book.
Okay, so my
Gosh, I can't imagine how many people we talk to where COVID is like the central focus of their shift into their passion is crazy. And it just like, I wonder how long into the future these conversations are going to be where it's still COVID is the focal point that shifts them.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, until the next big crazy thing happens, I guess.
Oh yeah, dang. Guess I shouldn't have said that.
hey, don't jinx this, Randy.
Yeah.
We are really just
Uh,
kind of now recovering a little
fair enough. So that's a lot of like almost a negative thing that happened to you that you were able to turn into a positive thing.
Yeah, that's another thing. Madison talks to me about my optimism, and I try to keep myself optimistic about many things. And obviously, like the world was ending at the time, and it's still hard to recover from it. But I know how to entertain myself, and I know how to keep myself going on the paths that I want to go on. So I don't know any other way.
I love
Yeah,
that,
that's
actually.
good.
Yeah,
Optimism for the win.
right? I actually think that would be a good sticker, what he just said. Yeah.
Let's make it. Let's make one up.
I love it. All right, cool. Noting right now.
What I don't even know what our minutes are, but yeah,
That
right
is
now.
amazing. No, having a good support system and having someone who supports you with what your dreams are and your goals are, that is unvaluable, not unvaluable, invaluable.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
You
I
know what I
agree.
meant.
I think it's one of the biggest strengths that I have is Madison, is having her in my corner.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
Relationship
you
goals, gentlemen.
Right. Yeah. Guys, women, if you are listening to this podcast, send it to your husbands or send it to potential people in the future. That way, guys who are into books and who will connect with women on things that they enjoy, that's huge. Kudos.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you actually accidentally double spaced the first print run of Ancient Ones, and then I imagine you got this and it's like this giant thick book, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize I had this many words.
Yeah, yeah, no, and Madison is like, I'm keeping this. I love this one. This one gives me all the extra room that I need to whatever. I was like, okay. So one thing that could be really good about a double spaced manuscript like that, if you're not expecting it to be the final version of it, is you can write all your notes in the margins, you know. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a surprise, and I'm like, oh, that's why. Okay, and then what really came from it afterwards was that I had to resize my cover.
Mm,
And as an indie publisher, resizing your cover, like it can potentially cost you more money to do that. So like try to make sure that you know your spacing beforehand. And so I was new to it, so I was just like, okay, well, I don't know what the distance is. This looks good on my screen. It doesn't look right when it actually comes to print.
right, yeah. People don't think about that whenever they're reading books, like the actual amount of work and the thought process that goes into producing it.
Choosing your fonts, trying to make sure that they're legible, not making it too small, not making it too big. What kind of color the page is? Is it going to be cream? Is it going to be? Are you going to put it in a mass market, which is now just a regular option? Do you want a hardcover? Do you want a soft cover? The hardcovers are so much more expensive, but they feel good. But yeah, so
I like my paperback.
me too.
What 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 drew you to do it yourself, to be an indie author rather than going a traditional route? Or did you try the traditional route and you're like, no, that's not for me?
I did submit to some agents, trying to get it published traditionally for the ancient ones, and the process is just so long. And as a sci-fi author, what really came down to was it took them more than 2 years to respond to me, which is part of why like I had been writing the ancient ones. I got it knocked out in 2020, maybe 2021, and then I have that record somewhere. And then it took me 2 years to hear from anybody, and that so I was like, okay, well, I need to do something and I was writing the other books in the process, so it's not like I was doing nothing. But at a certain point, you just have a backlog, and but as a sci-fi author, a big thing that I'm realizing, part of the reason why it's such a difficult market is because you could write something one day, like a full novel that you had this big idea, this big science idea about, and then the next day the science could be real and it could become obsolete, or the science could be disproven and it could become obsolete. So if you don't get it out before that time, then you might be SOL, you know? So I
That's so
ran into
interesting.
hmm. So I ran into that with connectivity, and I was like, I was already planning on marketing it, but I've had connectivity in the works for the better part of a decade, and now those concepts that are in connectivity, they're really just like turning into actual science. So I was like, I have to get this out before it's completely already in everybody's faces, like this is their lives now, you know?
Can you give us an example, or is that too telling?
No, no, not at all. It's projection, 3D projection technology was not advanced at all at the time that I did it. Now it's like I went to Japan in 2019, and they did an entire play, and everything was white, and they 3D projected everything onto the back there. And that's just actually becoming more commonplace. They have it at Universal Studios now. You know, the Sphere in Las Vegas, that kind of technology, that's just going to be in everybody's houses, and that's in connectivity. The level of the intricacy of how AI develops right now, we're dealing with this weird moment where we're in a fluctuation point where AI is helping us out more consistently. You know, like the film Her. It's not quite to that level, obviously, but it's like connectivity deals with that theme a little bit, and then like just the nature of climate change and like what these big storms are going to be like, and what's going to happen to the human race. I feel like there's like, not that that's going to be that way, like that's totally a vision in my mind, but like it's in the book in some capacity, and like that could easily be either absolutely correct or absolutely wrong, and if I don't get it out in the right way or early enough, then it's like it doesn't matter once it's wrong, you know?
Does it just shift your genre though? Or because like I feel like if you have a good storyline, regardless of whether or not the technology starts to become something that's reality for us, does it just shift your genre instead of like, oh, now I have to rewrite all of this technology, that all of these things that are happening and becoming, real life situations?
What do you mean, like does it become fantasy at that point, or does it become like a version of
Or even
like
contemporary, if you're thinking of like modern age things and things that are actually happening to us, I feel like oh gosh, I see what you're saying with it being like something they're not used to. But then again, that's just like, we write historical fiction, and they're not used to cell phones. They have no idea what that kind of stuff is. So, I mean, I feel like if the storyline is good, wouldn't it just be a genre shift?
Yeah, it could be. I guess so. Like a steampunk, like obviously didn't exist in the past, but people make that work. But that feels like that really cusps on fantasy too. So I could see how that would work. I guess just the way that I focus on my science in my books, I worry about it personally. But that's just because I've been doing it for this many years, and I have the backlog that I do. And maybe if you're writing one right now, that's your first one that you're going to put out, and you just put it out, and you don't have the backlog, then you might not be running into this like fear that I have now, which is like but also I just want to get them out. So it's like if any excuse that I can have to say, yeah, I'm going to put them out, I'm going to
Right.
do it.
You're like, stop debunking my excuses, man. Come on.
So we have the first one, the Ancient Ones, is out,
hmm hmm
and then Connectivity is the next one. Are they together or standalones?
Okay, so Connectivity came out in December, and they are technically connected. They are both part of the Odom's Library universe, but the Ancient Ones takes place 100,000 years in the past, and Connectivity takes place about like 200-ish years in the future from now. So they're so far apart that like you don't have that continuity that you need to be aware of between those two. That's going to be more of a factor for the next book, which still can stand alone, totally stands alone, but starts to give you the concept of the universe, and I'm very excited to put that out. But I'll in its own time.
I love it. So you mentioned how you are traveling to these different places and seeing these different things. You've traveled quite a bit. And how does those experience influence like your storytelling, and do you use like different cultural aspects that you see in the places you travel within your writing?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I don't think the ancient ones would exist without a childhood trip to Mesa Verde. Just seeing ancient monolithic structure like that, or considering the possibility of an ancient monolithic structure like that as a kid, has certainly shaped my imagination. But yeah, like I've been to Japan, I've been to Israel, I've been to Italy. I have been to Whitehorse, Canada, to see the aurora borealis, and I I definitely get different things from all those experiences. I'm a big foodie. I really enjoy food. I love drinks. I love cocktails, and I try them everywhere that I go. Obviously not when I was in Mesa Verde because I was just a kid, but um, but yeah, I mean they shape my imagination. Maybe that's the best way to put it. I in later books, in these first two books and in later books that I have written, I I definitely bring different cultural aspects into it in some way, and a lot of that is based on research. Like I'll read like New Scientist magazine a lot, and I get a lot of information from that. I read a lot of like Pulitzer Prize winning books. I'm reading the Sixth Extinction right now, and you see all the different places that she goes to, and in my own life experience, like I don't have necessarily go for scientific purposes when I'm going on travel, but
But it's a good perk.
it's a good perk. And let's see, what's the name of the book? The Actual Star. Do you know the book The Actual Star? Monica Byrne. Um,
Mm-mm.
yeah, so she traveled extensively while researching the book, but it's a sci-fi genre bending kind of piece, and you can see how the real spot that she goes to, the cave that she goes to, in the book, it's real. Like that's the author was there. She's been there. She's gone there a bunch of times, and it really paves the way for the book to have some what's the word? uh like the quality is higher because of it. You feel it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I experience that often whenever I find out about like I love this book so much and then I hear that, the writer actually went through that experience or they've gone to that place and the way that they can describe it, it makes it so much more tangible for the readers. And I think, one of the biggest things I've heard when starting off writing is like if you don't know what to write about something you've experienced. And that makes
mhm.
it where it's so much easier. It's not a forced thing. It's not your imaginary isn't just taking over, it's, reliving your situation and then describing it as the reader was going through it. And I think that that's such a huge skill too, especially for read or writers who haven't written before, starting off somewhere that's familiar. And then you can get into the fantastical. Then you can start, letting your imagination take over it and fluff up your story and everything. But yeah, I love that. Oh
Yeah,
no.
ground your work. Oh no. Ground your work, and then your imagination can run wild.
Yes, I love that. So with fantasy or with sci-fi, the word count. I haven't written sci. I have never written sci-fi. I don't think I said that correctly. But anyways, I read it every now and then. But it's not something that's super high. Like there are like Brandon Sanderson. He's a sci-fi fantasy mix. But what is the word count for like your manuscripts?
For me,
Mhm.
I base mine more off of some classic sci-fi. So I go based on like Asimov and Le Guin. So I push to not overfill my word count. I like cusping at 60,000 words.
Okay. Okay. That
It's
was not
not
what I was
that.
expecting. I was
No,
expecting for some reason in my mind, I was like, fantasy's gotta be like 300,000 words or something like that.
they
Or
are. Yeah.
sci-fi.
Yeah, no, I really don't want to do that personally. I think if I can keep my prose more what's it
Lean.
yeah, lean, then yeah, if I can keep my prose more lean, then I can help get the book to an audience. And I understand the argument that they want the extra time with it, they want the additional world building. I think I stuff world building into my books, so I don't necessarily want to just like drag people along with too
Skim that
much
crap
information.
anyways, man. We got Kathy. Kathy and I read The Shadow of the Gods, and
Mm.
that was her first, and I hate it. I hate that we did it this way because that was her first introduction into fantasy world. She's a romantasy reader, that sort of thing. And she was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Couldn't. I DNF'd it. I did. I was like, no, I'm
Oh man. Yeah, that hurts me so bad to not finish reading a book, but like every once in a while, you just have to put it down.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
same. Like I'm not a quitter, but also I was like, like, how many times how many times do we hear about him flicking the snot off of his nose? Like, we get it. It's cold. I don't need that visual over and over. Like, move on. It was
There
just
must have been
too
a
much.
there must have been something from the author where like that particular moment stuck with them in their own life, and they couldn't forget about flicking the snot off of their nose.
And I always catch myself whenever I'm reading books of like the repetition thing, but then as a writer, I do it. I'm like, oh, because especially whenever my first draft is coming out, I don't go back and read what I've already written. I just write. And so like if I have like a clever saying or something, I will find myself repeating it, and I'm like, ah, shit, I'm doing the thing that I hate reading.
Then you just got to pick the best version of that moment and get rid of the rest. No, it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So with sci-fi, it being different from fantasy and these other genres, what do you feel like makes a good sci-fi?
Hmm. I mean, it's that extraness of it that affects your audience, that like opens your mind a bit. There's one sci-fi novel in particular, and it's mostly about the middle of the book, maybe not the two sides of it, but The Gods Themselves by Isaac Asimov. It's a quick read. It's easy, but it finds a way to completely flip your perspective on what you think you're reading, um, without giving anything away. Hopefully, it's an old book, so you could, if you haven't read it by now, but
What did
it's
you say the name was? I'm not writing it down because I haven't read it, I promise.
the gods themselves.
Yeah, I totally read
And
that.
uh, and like just the middle, like, so it's broken up into three sections, and what it does so well is, yeah, it flips your perspective. It just does that, and it just does it in such a natural way. I find that there's a moment in The Naked Sun, which is one of his novels as well, where I recall specifically having an aha about the concepts that he's talking about for robots. Like, what is the intricacy of robotics that makes this a question of if they're murderers or not? Like, why are these things happening? What's going on? And then, like, he just puts this one really clever passage in there, and it's just enough to make me, oh, okay, yeah, absolutely, I'm gonna read the rest of your
You
stuff
mean you've been
forever.
saying that this whole time?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think sci-fi, unlike any other genre, has the capacity to open people's minds like that, to change your perspective on real world science as well as real world problems.
So you had earlier mentioned that your works are a kind of a combination, a cross between whatever science fiction and like Stargate. So to me, Stargate is, I'm sorry, I am going to go back to that. Um,
Okay.
to me, Stargate is science fiction, but I think there's also a good amount of paranormal in there. So do you have that crossover? Like, because I feel like there could be some little genre shifts that you could also tap into there for the paranormal side, and maybe throw in some romance. I'm just saying, it's a possibility,
Gotta have romance.
right?
Even if it's
Well,
with the robots, it's fine.
Yeah.
there's, yeah. In the ancient ones already, there's a little bit of something that you could equate to paranormal. So my take on paranormal is science anyway. So it makes it easy for me to do sci-fi and still tap into that. I have something in my universe, and I now that I have it in there, I realize that it's across a lot of different. Sci-fi is just nexus, is the space between worlds, kind of the reality between realities that we don't get to see. And I bring that in. I introduced that already in the ancient ones. I don't really tap it in connectivity at all, but it is part of my world building. It is part of my Odom's library structure. Is this nexus that's very important, and to me, that's where your paranormal stuff does exist and can exist. And some of my other stories absolutely give a vibe of paranormal, but it equates back to this science, this real quantum reality that does exist.
That's cool. I like that. And that kind of goes directly into what you were just saying too, of like it's going to change people's minds on, or open their ideals on the way that they look at stuff. Because I was like, how are you going to connect paranormal to science? Oh, instantly I was like, oh yeah, that was obvious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. The paradigm shifts are real when an entire audience goes from the one perspective to the other. It's just so cool.
Yeah. That I think Brandon Sanderson's book, the Mistborn series, did that for me with leadership and like the way that I look at religion. And that was th- reaching the end of that story and the way that he tied literally the first fucking paragraph of that story to the last paragraph of the 3 books later. I was like, this dude is genius. This is insane level of storytelling.
Yeah, he deserves to be as popular as he is.
100%. 100%. Man. So with how sci-fi often explores like humanity's relationships with technology and the unknown and that sort of thing, do you get excited about that, or is that more like are you telling it from the fear aspect of it?
I'm super excited. I'm always excited about it. Yeah. My biggest thing with just with connectivity, before I get even into any other kind of thing, the concept was born out of like a kind of fever dream of something that I want. I want this concept. The main concept of connectivity, the core of the book, is that people are going to work, and the work that they're doing is video games. They're playing video games that affect the real world around them. Everything that they have as a task is fun. Like, work is boring. If you go to a regular day job, it can be very boring, and or mind numbing or whatever. And I don't see why we're not reaching a point now where those jobs can't be fun, can't be playful, enjoyable. So that was where that came from, and that is something
Yeah,
that
if
could
you can tell
happen.
me
And
how I can level up in my job, and now I'm level 45 at my job, I'm like, okay, let's do this.
yeah, exactly. And that's the core of that. But so, like, I don't attack these things from a place of fear. Now, the fear of certain problems that seem unavoidable and uncontrollable is absolutely there. But like, I tend to look for the optimism again. It's that kind of thing. My third book is much more optimistic, but it comes from a place of a lot of tragedy.
Nice. Jeez, yeah. No, that's a good and that's a good way to connect it in to where it's not fear driven, but it is something that is, like I said, like you said, the tragedy aspect of it connects it emotionally to where it's not just the curiosity and the excitement of it, because, a story often isn't told by the excitement, or, the adventure books are, but a lot of good stories are driven from the trauma, or driven from trying to escape the pain or trying to uncover the pain. So that's a really
You,
good connection piece.
you need the problem to come up with a solution.
And and it seems like you have and I think that coming from you have the unique perspective of coming from the screenplay or whatever, that part of it, right? So you are already thinking about connecting the people to your characters. And I think a lot of authors kind of struggle with that, new ones especially. Like you have to get
Hmm.
them, the reader has to connect with the characters, otherwise they're going to DNF it. Like they're going to be like,
Yeah,
this means
yeah.
nothing to me, right? Um, but then also going back to the audiobooks, like that is also the such a value that the narrator brings, is that they bring the emotions and the thoughts and and the personality and whatever of the character into the realm where then the reader can then even connect more to um, all of the experiences and thought processes and who that character is at their core.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, I like what you said though, Kathy, with him, with your manuscript or your screenwriting. I don't think a lot of people consider what they're actually showing the reader. Like if you were to pretend like you had the box and you're doing the panning of the screen and everything, that is what you were writing. What are you zooming in on? Why did you just zoom in on that detail? Like that is also very cinematic in the aspect of like people enjoy movies so much more or not so much more, but often a lot more, because it shows you the detail, and you can still have that in your writing. And you, like she said, coming from a screenplay background, can specialize in those close-up shots, the focusing in on the important details. Why did it pan to that crown that was sitting on the desk? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I can when in the screenplay, I can write the shot and then I could storyboard it, and I've done that before. And yeah, having that perspective helps you a lot instead of just like feeling like you have a massive painting and you're trying to like you want to fit everything into the one big painting. It's not like that. It's you have the moments and you have the close-ups and you have the wide shots. Yeah.
yeah,
And your
yeah.
writing is keeping in, like, you write from that perspective of bringing bringing the story to life for, and ultimately, if we're being like stretching a little bit, you are writing for actors to
Mm-hmm.
act out your part, where this is um what a lot of indie authors, when they're first starting their writing, but then they wanted to go audiobook, like they don't really keep in mind audio, like how's this gonna, like how's this gonna be narrated, like is it gonna,
Mm-hmm.
so they don't write for the experience of the reader, they write for their story, which is fine. I'm just saying, if you ever want your book to go to audio, then you have to keep that in mind in how you're writing, because you need the if you want it on WhisperSync on Kindle Unlimited, the audio has to match your manuscript like 97% to be whisper
Mm-hmm.
synced. Um, and so that's, like a big, huge selling point. So I, I think you have like a little bit of a leg up, that you essentially are writing your books for narration, essentially.
I mean, that's interesting because I think I've gotten better at that. And the ancient ones I think reads really well, but I also like my experience of trying to convert it into an audiobook. I don't know. Maybe the ancient ones is doesn't translate as well to that, but I think connectivity absolutely would, and I think the book after that and after that probably would translate pretty well. So it's like it's a growing thing. Like don't expect if you are writing for that for any purpose whatsoever, don't expect the first one out to do all of the things that you think it's going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna stunt yourself into a panic attack of like all the things you have to remember while
Analysis
writing.
paralysis.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just get that book out, then don't show it to no one, and write your next book. So I'm interested. How do you approach writing complex, like emotional scenes? Then do you draw from like personal experience, or do you imagine yourself in the character's shoes, or do you imagine like where are the shots, where's the camera coming in? Like, I'm interested to know how you go about that.
Before it would have been the camera shot thing, but at this point now, since I've been writing prose for a bit, I make it much more personal. I try to live in the truth of the character, but the only way that I can do that is to be truthful with myself. And if I have had a life experience that it all equates to that thing, it's a lot like acting in that respect. If I can connect those two things together, then the scene feels stronger because that's a real emotion that I actually felt at one point in time, or I've witnessed in my life somebody else that I know experiencing that emotion and try to understand that for myself, the truth of that thing too, which maybe makes my relationships better.
Mm, I like that. I like that a lot, because the empathy aspect of human being a human is so important to connect with other humans. Like,
Hmm.
you can't just go through life and be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, dude. Like, there's no connection piece there. Like, please, I'm trying to tell you a story of a situation I went through to help you understand. And if you don't have the connection of empathy and like understanding what they went through, there's storytelling is useless.
Hmm. Yeah.
Very cool. I like that. I actually had someone tell me on here that they get more if you pay attention to writing and to the characters and the way that they interact with other characters, you can get more like therapeutic insight than like the actual motivational books where it's like going through and just telling you, okay, this is this emotion. This is anger. This is how you deal with anger. No, I want
Mm.
to see someone blow some shit up.
Give me the example. Give me the example. Yeah.
Yeah, can you say that in a sentence?
So can we blow
Cool.
some shit up?
Yeah. Okay.
So tell us about connectivity.
Connectivity takes place about 200 years in the future. Dystopian world. Humanity is driven basically into large cities that are kind of underground, almost Asimovian in that respect. Um, the um, the core tenet of it is that it's a corporation state, and that all of the civilians that live there are employees of the company, Clearbridge National City, and they are members of something called the gaming class. The gaming class means that people play video games to affect the world around them. They are lower echelon, but there is an upper management that also games, but in a very different way. The main character of the story's name is Seti Navan. She is a single mother. Her son is 15, I think, years old. Um, his name is JC. Seti is climbing the ranks of the gaming class. She is actually in the process of converting to upper management. But in the process, she's finding it more and more difficult to communicate with her son in the real world. So she is introduced to a program called Connectivity that's supposed to help her to reconnect with her son.
That is crazy cool how you just tied that all together with the end.
Yes.
Like none of it really matters. Like it does matter, but none of the strings connect together. I love that I'm using that word until you say that last sentence.
Thank you. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is out. And just it just came
Yes,
out in December.
it sure did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very proud of that book, because it's a kind of version of sci-fi that you don't get to see very often. It's more in line with films like Her and Gattaca, which are a little bit more cerebral sci-fi, but with emotional action beats that you can really relate to. And I feel like I don't read very much modern sci-fi that's like that at the very least. So I think it has a place, uh, and I think that it needs to find its audience. But it's a special book to me.
That's awesome. Is there something that you're drawing from with your real life on not connecting with a parental figure?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Like it's actually my story. Just go read it.
I'll tell you, and like I hope she doesn't like take offense to this aspect of it. My mother, I remember very clearly, when I still lived at home, these nights where she would fall asleep like playing solitaire or something in the kitchen, and on her little laptop that she had for work, and I felt so badly for her, but I didn't personally know how to help her go deal with that. Anytime that I would broach the subject with her of like of kind of the emotional fog that I think she was in, um, she would just kind of like write it off. So at a certain point, how am I supposed to communicate with her about this thing if she's not willing to listen? So it takes two people to have a conversation. And what's the mother's perspective of that same thing? Does she think does she think that she can't communicate well with the son because of the opposite reason? And that's the heart of that story.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I can just imagine, being a mom in that situation, you're wanting to do everything perfect for your children. You're wanting to be the good role model. You're wanting to be all these things. And whenever they bring it to you, like I imagine the feeling of trying to stuff all of her troubles and all of her what she's actually experienced down in that moment so she can be the bigger person and be the person who's taking care of the house and making sure you're taken care of. It's insane the amount of growth that we've gone through as a society with mental health where our parents didn't have the space to talk about what they were going through. They had to stay in their lane as parental role. Otherwise, you're being a shitty parent. You can't be like, "No, I'm really struggling with this and I don't know how to handle it." That's not being a good parent in that day and age.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. We're in a completely different point in time now where we realize that mental health is so important, and uh, I wish that the word would continue to get out in that way. And I somehow I feel like we're going backwards again, and we need to make a point of mental health and sharing and communicating better with each other, and not just like being too prideful and not accepting the words of those that you're supposed to love.
It sounds like Seti is a single mom, right?
Yes.
That's like a whole other set of issues, right? I was a single mom for a long time, so that's a story that is definitely I can connect with. Did you guys? I just did that, like I connected with her. Same.
You're like, hey guys, did you see how I use that
I did
word?
it. I did the thing.
You're an author, Kathy. Woohoo!
um, but I do think that that's very cool that you explore that because I mean, there's so much pressure to be not just the mom, but also the dad. And, do I share this with my kids? Do I not share this with my kids? Like, am I going to make it so they're going to be in therapy when they're adults? Yes, you are. But,
Yes.
It's
Doesn't matter how good
but
of a
it's
unavoidable.
parent you are.
unavoidable.
Mhm.
But yeah, and as Randy was saying back in that, like I am their parent. You don't have space for that. There's no time, especially as a single mom. And I love that that's kind of, where that you made her a single mom. Like you don't have time. You don't have time. You don't have time to do nothing. Like I showered today. Congratulations. Like, yeah.
Hmm.
So I love that you kind of brought that to light.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah. And art so often drives, like it will create the controversial conversations, and it will create the space to have people have more open conversations about subjects like this. And what I say for every person listening who wants to tell a story that they feel like might be controversial, or that might be this is not what society does, but I want it to do this, write those stories, because art so often is the gateway to having these conversations.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you doing that, especially, I would be interested seeing your take as being a male author writing a mother's perspective of how she's wishing to connect with her son. For one, and it's not the accuracy. I'm not like I want to come at you for the accuracy of this. I want to look at it as what, being the son who wished they had the connection with their mother, what do you envision the mother went through? Like I think that would be fantastic to step into those shoes of like the reverse role for you writing this story.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think it's a great read, and I hope that people enjoy seeing the different sides of it. And if you're mad at me for how she's portrayed, then that's one thing. But I try to empower her too. So I really don't I don't have any regrets on this story.
That's
Initially, when I
awesome.
was writing it, no, thank you. Initially, when I was writing it, the screenplay version of it, I went really dark and really sour towards the end, and I went a little bit more into the territory of like 1984 Brazil, and I had a change of heart at a point where I'm like, this is not the character that I want to share with the world, and this is not necessarily true to the person that I expect or that I want people to experience, or to learn to be themselves. And I think SETI grew exponentially because of it.
Well, also, most likely what happened is you grew as a person by writing that dark story. You got some emotions out. It gave you like this cathartic exercise to be like, okay, got that out. Let's actually write what we wanted to write. You know, like when you're starting to talk with someone and you like sit down with a calm, cool demeanor and they say one triggering thing and it's like, blah. And then you're like, that's not what I meant to say at all.
No, yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. And I hadn't thought about that, to be honest. But yeah, that is probably the reality of the situation. And yeah, I feel stronger for having written the version of it that I have.
And the reality is you are stronger for it. Like you went through the emotions and then you're like, that's not the person I wanted to write. And you being able to recognize that, that is huge growth.
Thank you, Randy.
For sure. So, with all that being said, where can we read this freaking book? Because now I need to read it.
Connectivity, you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on barnesandnoble.com. You can read it on your Kindle. It's on Kindle Unlimited if you have that service. You can go to my Linktree with the period between the TR and the EEs for some reason, dash Odom's library or slash Odom's library. My Instagram is CB Sci-Fi. CB Sci-Fi, and I'll give updates there. If you go through the link tree, you'll see all sorts of random fun things popping up. I just put out a short story as well. It's called The Last Trucker. It's a very quick read, about 8 pages, and it's also on Kindle Unlimited. I will put it up for free every chance that I get, but Amazon has a limit. You can only make things as low as 99 cents on the regular. So whenever the 5 months roll back around, I'll put it up for free again.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you said your social medias. Go follow them on social medias too. That way you can follow this story. This was fantastic,
It
CB.
was fun.
It was such a pleasure connecting with you.
Same.
We are
I
so
had a really
corny.
nice time chatting with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're so dumb. You started it, Kathy.
I did 100%. I'm corny. That's me. I'm the one.
I love it. We're all about authenticity here for sure. No, I this was such a great conversation, and you're one of our first sci-fi people on the show, so I love shedding some light into those conversations because sci-fi is such a cool freaking genre, guys.
I didn't
No.
realize I didn't realize I was so early on in the sci-fi game for y'all, but I really appreciate hearing that. And I had a really nice time talking to you too.
Yeah, no, we've had fantasy, we've had romantasy. Let's see, we've had some. I think we've had a thriller on, but I think you are one of our first sci-fis on, and that's so exciting. I love being able to like check off our list of like all the different ones that we can add into our. Do you like fantasy? Do you like romantasy? Go listen to this author. Go listen to this podcast episode. So now we have one that we can be like, are you a sci-fi person? Go listen to this podcast episode.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining in today. Your story was fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Go follow CB on all of his stuff. Go check out his book. Let us know what you think of Connectivity if you've read it, and let CB know how awesome you think it is because we all need support. Oh, reminder, if anyone's listening, if you have read a book and you want to review it, just go review it. You don't have to give the big long like review. Just hit those stars, whatever you decide it deserves, because we understand having reviews stack up on you is a lot. And to get our books out there, reviews are like currency for us. They are so, so valuable. So just my quick spiel on that. Go review the book. Doesn't have to be the long star or the long review. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Lemons Listening Library. We'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemons Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening.